Ayo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The vortex.
In today's world, alright, for me, I don't know. I think fatherhood comes with, like, I'll say, stability, support, direction, strength, foundation. I would say, like, knowledge, insight. Not trying to say that that can't come from many other sources, because obviously there's many other sources and vices where we can get certain things from, but I'm a guy who just I'll say lots of my structure is traditional, and when you're drilling in the traditional sense, I think those are the things that come with fatherhood. Yeah.
I think for me, fatherhood is very subjective, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, everyone's got their different ideas about fatherhood, but there's some basics, and usually driven by, you know, before the baby emerges, the child emerges, there's already this connection, not like the mum, but as a first-time father, especially in being reminiscent and remembering what it was like, there's already this connection, this love that starts developing before the baby comes out. So the basis for me is love. Like, you have this love that's unquestionable when the baby comes out. You know, that life is priceless, so precious. Hopefully in most cases, because there's lots of cases where dads aren't about, or they, you know, they don't give a monkey. So, but for me it's love, and there comes these expectations, being a father, from society, from the mother, and depending upon your upbringing, it sort of dictates how you navigate as a father and how you deal with your children or child as a dad as well. You know, that traditional ways in me, very much so, but also a new age of sort of detaching myself from the traditional way because it was too harsh as well. So you sort of, there's this thin line between tradition and modernity in this new age of parenting. So, but you know, for me the driver's love, and all the good things that come with that. So keeping your child or children safe, wanting them to do the best in life, do better than you, them not to get into any harm, do well in school, not get anyone pregnant early, or don't get pregnant yourself, don't get in police trouble, give you all the tools to navigate social life without being too scathed, so to speak. So for me that's just the basics. It's a lot more complex than that, but I think from my perspective, dads get a raw deal. It's weird. The weirdest thing, good dads get a raw deal more than bad dads sometimes. I can't understand it. I see it a lot in the black community where black dads are good dads. They, you know, they might have broken up. They'll support by giving money and taking the children, but then there's this weird dynamic between the mum and the dad, and a sort of trying to not let the dad be too involved in the life, but in the child's life or the children's life, but because there's money and support, they sort of allow them and give them a little bit of a carrot. All right, you can take them then or whatever. Where a dad that doesn't do shit can have the children or child anytime, or doesn't have to give over any money. It's not asked to give any. So there's this strange sort of treatment of dads in the black community sometimes. That's upsetting for me. You know, I've been involved in that sort of dynamic at one stage in my life. It wasn't very comfortable, to say the least. And if people know me, they know what type of dad I am. You know, I'm hands-on with all three of my children, regardless of the breakups that I've gone in. I've always been involved in their lives, and you can ask them, they'll say, yeah, dad's always been around, you know. But each to his own. People are different, you know, and sometimes I can't understand why certain dads operate in a certain way, but I haven't lived their life. I haven't come up in a family home, in their family home, and experienced the things they've experienced, and maybe got attachment issues or got other types of issues that have sort of been the predetermining factor on how they parent as a father.
Do you think society still expects fathers to be mainly providers, or has emotional presence become just as important?
I think the whole state of society's changed. Now women, you know, the traditional roles of women staying in the home and men going out to work, that's gone, really. You know, there's good and bad, there's positives and negatives in that in itself, but times have changed and we have to adapt to that. And the traditional roles have gone, so, you know, to some extent, I think. Some people still operate like that. There's no problems if you're operating like that, and it operates for you in the best way.
What I was going to say is, you know, because those roles in Western society have evolved, or not, maybe just say the word changed, you know. But when you go in certain other places on the planet, those sort of roles and, you know, situations remain the same. Would you say that has it evolved, or is it any major benefit, or because some people in those situations haven't changed the stride, if you see what I'm saying? You know, like you got certain places where they don't have technology and they're not dealing with all this stuff. They're dealing with the same basic structure of the family household, and they're still thriving within their paradigm.
I think each culture to their own. You know, it's like people will come to England and think just how the family operates is a bit loose and a bit all over the place. Certain cultures, whether they're Asian or Turkish or whatever, or traditional African, may see it differently. And then some traditions, you know, there's no problems in having more than one wife, you know, or more than one partner in whatever capacity. So, you know, culturally people are different. And I think really in the end, especially when it comes to being a father, it's about doing your best by your family and your child or children. You know, and some people think that is by, you know, ruling with an iron fist. Some fathers are still too heavy-handed, too loud still, too scary still, to say the least. And there's some that are too soft.
Hey,
you know, so it's getting a fine balance as a father and not being dragged down by, you know, especially as a black father, the oppressive forces and talks and stereotypes about you not being around or being a crap dad, because that can have a significant impact on your day-to-day functioning and how you operate with the mum as well, and how she operates with you.
Do you know what's just come to me? I don't know why. The term masculine toxicity. What do you think about that term? Because for me, I don't like it. I think that you just got toxic people. I hate when they just put it like in that bracket on these particular set of people.
Yeah, because I think you can get both, you know. Whether it's masculine toxicity or feminine toxicity, like that, the wordplay will change in the next 6 months or year, you know. They'll throw up words and they'll use it for a while, and then it'll get buried somewhere and some new term will come out. For me, I don't play into it. You're either nasty or you're not, you know. One of the two, whether you're feminine or masculine.
That's right.
I don't play into masculine toxicity at all, because we know that patriarchy has ruled this planet for the longest amount of time, and men at the top dictate how this planet operates. So, you know, you could say that all day, but we know there's good and bad in everyone.
Right.
So just identifying someone as an individual is good enough, you know, whether you're masculine or feminine.
That's right. That's right. What are some of the biggest pressures that fathers face in this generation?
Okay. You know, I think a lot of it is to do with expectation.
Yeah.
You expect men to, I'll talk firstly in the black community, you know, you've got to be strong, you've got to be courageous, you've got to be a good lover, you've got to be a financial provider, you've got to be strong but also be emotionally available or not, because you can be seen as weak depending on who your partner is, so you're in a sticky situation. There's a lot of things that come with it that might come with people beyond the scope of blackness, but for black men especially, I know there's a lot of pressure that they feel day to day. I know I have, depending on who you've been going out with as well, who your partner's been, but just the societal pressures as well, in regards to being around, and these notions of that black dads aren't there.
And that's what I wanted to just lead in to ask you, that how does the expectation to hold it all together impact men's mental health?
Well, I mean, we've talked about trauma before, transgenerational trauma, just general trauma. We've talked about racism, discrimination, unconscious bias, dehumanization, criminalization, all the isations, all the societal pressures that black men face daily. Whether you talk about us being 7 times more likely to die in police custody, or 6 to 27 times more likely to be stopped by the police. Like, there's pressures all around, let alone the daddy pressures that are on top of you. So mental health, of course, you know, especially when there's statistics where black people are 3.5 times more likely to be sectioned. So, you know, if you know statistics and you're feeling the pressure from society, being a father that's good enough, it's hard work. You know, it's hard work for most men across the board, especially if you're putting in the work as a father. When you don't give a monkeys about your daddy role, then it's nothing. It isn't hard work. You know, but even down to your children not phoning you is a thing, you know. As your children get older, they become more detached from you. And if you're not in the same household, those phone calls will get less. The interaction between you, it can be heart-wrenching to say the least, because you're used to your child saying, daddy, 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 blah, blah, blah. And when they're not even picking up the phone to phone you, that can hurt. But, you know, you have to have an understanding of that's the sort of stage you went through. You know, with my kids, when it feels like they're sort of not straying but doing their own thing more, you have to understand that this is their time for doing that. You had your time where you weren't interacting with your mum or dad, whoever, as you got on with your life as a teenager.
That's right. Do you think fathers are often overlooked when it comes to emotional support and community understanding?
They're overlooked all the time. I remember with my first child, we was in the hospital, and the mum, my daughter wasn't in the right position. So she was in hospital like a week, 2 weeks before my daughter was due. Now, I stayed in that hospital every day and then went and got the X food or whatever, came back. But I sat in a chair, I slept in a chair in the room. The nurses come in, they didn't even look at me. They didn't say a word to me, they tended to the mother, like even say good morning, say something to me. They didn't say anything to me. I was mashed up on the chair in some sort of messed up position. Probably for about 7 days. They didn't say a word to me. No sign of respect or, you know, acknowledgement in any way. And that was the first sign of, all right, I'm not even a proper dad yet, but I'm still not getting no respect in me being supportive to the mother. So dads get about, you know, fathers for justice. I understood fathers for justice. When you're trying to fight for your child, I'm a person that took the ex to court for joint residency. And that was an arduous task, to say the least, a very emotional roller coaster for everyone. But it was a necessary evil, because there was messing about with the time that I had with my daughter. So if I'm supposed to, if we've made arrangements and I'm supposed to pick you up, or, you're supposed to drop them off and it's not happening, and I want to have time with my daughter because we've broken up, why are you going to deny me that? Especially when there's this stereotype that black dads don't want to get involved and always stray away. So I'm a guy that's getting involved, but you don't want me to get involved? I had to take her to court. Bottom line, because I'm going to fight for my child.
That's right.
You know, and there's a lot of dads like that out there. They're put in a sticky situation where they want to have a relationship with their child, and as much as some women say, yeah, I want you to have a relationship, they're resistant to it being a smooth ride, you know, and it happening in a way which is beneficial for everyone, because you don't have to say anything. But when tensions arise between mum and dad, children can feel it, regardless.
Yeah.
They don't have to hear the words. They know something's going on and they're unsettled by it.
How can fathers balance the pressures of providing financially while still being emotionally available to their children?
That's a real individual one, you know. For me, balancing that pressure, you've got to find something in yourself to be able to, I mean, you can always look after yourself, your own well-being in some respect, but it depends how you take on the financial pressure.
Yeah.
There's some situations you're in financially that you can't do anymore. So you've got to accept that.
Yeah.
Not beat your head against a brick wall, you know, and crumble down somewhere on the floor thinking, oh, I can't do this, or you go out to do something mad on a criminal level to get money or whatever. However the pressure's hitting you, you've got to have a realistic idea of what you need to do practically to sort out the situation, you know, and not go to extremes where you can put yourself, maybe a family at risk, your own liberty at risk. So it's very individual, balancing emotional state and your financial pressures and looking after family.
Yeah.
It's not easy at all.
What role does social media play in shaping unrealistic expectations of what a good father should look like? And, you know, the reason why I've got that question there is because I find that, like, everybody's basing everything off the device what they're holding in their hand.
They are, and a lot of it is based around what you can give your children and money.
Yeah.
You know, consumerism is a real killer. And nowadays, I think there's even an expectation from children, to a certain extent,
Oh, definitely.
that your love is shown by what you give me. You know, more than what you give me emotionally. You know, and I think it happens a lot more when you've provided that from the start, from when the child's born, dressing them in certain clothes, giving them whatever, giving them a device early, giving them an iPad early, giving them a phone early, and then they develop these expectations that you're going to be that person. But then you know, it's like Dr. Frankenstein, you create a monster, then you get upset with the monster afterwards because they just want. And that emotional bit that you may have had really early, depending on how quick you started implementing devices or presents or whatever. When that goes, that bit where they just love you for no apparent reason, you're hurt, but you created that situation.
Would you say, like I find society is not really present, you know, just to take it away from that and just to make a bit more sense out of it. It's just like, you know, like little things like you would be outside meeting people, talking to people, especially if it's a man meeting a female, you go and talk. Now it's just all tap, tap, tap on the screen. So I'm saying this, the same thing for children. Is it, you know, are we putting them behind too much devices to get the parenting skills or a kind of sense of what the world is giving to them through this device, rather than being present and giving them that information yourself or interacting with them?
I think there's a bit of laziness there, because the device has become like a parent in itself that doesn't really teach you the best things. But also there's guilt sometimes as well from parents in regards to things they never got when they were young, and now they can provide, so they give you these new things, make you feel happy. It's a very complex situation, and I think it's always down to the individual and the family, especially if mum and dad are on the same page with things. I mean, I watched a show with Neil deGrasse Tyson the other day, that astrophysicist guy who has good conversations on his podcast.
Yeah.
He had some social psychologist on there, and they were saying that really children shouldn't get a device until they're 16. You know,
Why was he saying that? Why were they saying that?
because of how addicted they become to it.
Yes.
You know, whether it's endorphin, serotonin levels, or whatever levels are raising up because of that device. It's like taking the device away from a child. It's like taking away crack cocaine from a crack user.
Cold turkey.
Yeah. So, you know, if I drive to work and I leave my phone at home, I've already got a certain weird feeling going
certain
on.
anxiety,
So, so, you know, and I'm an adult that has to manage it. So you know how hard it is for a child to manage that. So I think nowadays, in today's society, just parenting comes with a lot of different sort of pressures that you didn't have to really deal with before. And as a father, who sometimes is vilified and ostracized and treated badly, just by people hearing the term father. Like, there's this like, what kind of dad are you?
Right.
You know what I mean? Straight away. I mean, mums get that as well, based on the look, but there's a real deep rooted stereotype of how dads can be, and it sort of floats around in that area of you've got to prove yourself first. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was going to ask, what are some of the unique challenges single fathers take, or face, I should say, that aren't often discussed?
The single fathers that I've come across in my line of work, quite a few of them have become that because of the death of the mother.
Okay.
Now, in those situations, I more than take my hat off to them. Like, you're having to deal with your own grief, you're having to deal with the grief of your child or children, you're having to manage going forwards in a way where, you know, men don't even know where the towels are in the house.
Yeah.
You know, you're always asking your missus,
Yeah.
where's this, where's that, babe, where's the towels, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so just pulling everything together as a man in a situation like that, where you're the main organizer now and having to do the school run and think about work. And there's a lot of mums out there that do that regardless. And there are women as well that have been in that predicament as well, where their partners died. But for dads, it's quite an alien situation to be in. When I say that, the nurturing of children and the looking after the home isn't a skill easily come by men. Yeah, there's men that do it and they do it great, but you know, mums are mums, isn't it? Like, you know how mums operate. They've got this innate quality of being able to pull things together without even, you know, they may have seen their mum doing all the work and learn through the process of socialization, but to be doing it yourself without having read a book or got to the degree level or master's level in learning about parenting and just being able to do it. You know, they do that so well. But men at the opposite end of the spectrum, you've really got to learn some stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be able to pull it together in those situations. And there's situations where mums have left and become single, they become a single parent, all different types of situations. And there's good dads that do that to the best of their ability, and there's bad dads that can't pull it together and their kids are all over the place, you know. So it's not an easy job, but what can you do but try your best?
The balance is definitely needed.
Yeah.
Definitely. Do you think single fathers get enough recognition or support from social systems and communities?
I don't think anyone does, tell you the truth, where depending on where you're living. If you're living in areas like Tottenham, etc., I say that because I live in Tottenham, man or wife, man or woman, you're not getting the support you really need, you know, and there are disparities in that support. It's a situation I'm getting myself involved in with a mum and her child, and he's displaying some sort of special needs. And weirdly enough, he started soiling himself. You can tell that there's something different with this young man. As an educator, and anyone that would be in education, they'll be able to identify that there's something going on with this young person straight away. And now they've started soiling themselves. The mum was quite worried about that, took him to the hospital, and they told him that they should give him a watch. Why? Like, why would you say to someone whose child is actually soiling himself that they need a watch? For me...
Sorry, when you say get a watch, you're talking about a watch on the wrist?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Go on.
So, that level of disrespect, because a black mother's come to the hospital with concerns over their child who's obviously having problems in holding things in, and then you say, which sounds like you're being ultra disrespectful, why don't you buy him a watch? Now there are some things that happen to certain people, especially black people, when they go to certain institutions and look for help. And I think across the board, with when I talk about that in regards to black people and black fathers are looked upon in a certain way, and can be treated quite disrespectfully in certain situations, let alone black mums. And if you come from a certain place and you talk a certain talk in a certain way with a certain accent, you know, I can only imagine if you're like, "Oi mate, I need some help with my kids." Yeah, people are going to treat, especially when you live in a certain area. Yeah, you know, straight away they look upon you in a certain disrespectful way. So, you know, I can talk about black issues and being a black father and even black mothers facing certain challenges in regards to bias. But when you lived in impoverished communities, it's not only black people that experience that, because there are stereotypes attached to all kinds of different people, you know, let alone white British. And they consider them to be, and I've seen it beneath the shoe of many people when people look at white people from a certain area, they do think of them in a particular way that's wholly negative. So, and they don't get the best treatment either. So, you know, across the board it's bad, but for dads in general, there's a lot of tension and there's a lot riding in you, especially if you're a man that wants to do the best by their child and the mother. You know, when things start falling apart, when finances start not being as good, when your emotional state isn't as good because of the finances, because your relationships based on the financial situation's not going well, or a plethora of different things can be going on. As a man, you feel stressed and strained, and things can lead off into other realms of addiction or cheating or whatever as a coping mechanism for the pressure, you know, and that there's no excuses. Because some men are just like that anyway, they're just cheaters. But sometimes the pressure is so immense, you end up doing things you didn't ever think you were going to do. You know?
Out of character.
Yeah.
How can society do better in supporting single fathers raising children on their own?
Well, the services around in certain areas are crap.
Yeah.
You know, and it's upsetting. It's all down to money a lot of the time.
Yeah.
If the community was more, there was a more cohesive structure to communities now, then that would be good, because then, you know, people would understand that, all right, blah blah, looks after his child, we'll chip in, we'll help with whatever. But it seems like you're on your own nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, if there are communities and there are single fathers about, tap into that single father and understand that he's facing some hardships, you know, that may be quite novel for him, depending on what circumstances arose for him to be a single parent, you know. But I take off my hat that I was brought up by in a single parent household, you know, so I know what comes with it, whether man or woman. But as a father, that's co-parenting with 3 kids, 1 from one mother and 2 from another mother. I understand the tensions that can arise and the hardships in those relationship dynamics, let alone the expectations that I have of myself as a man and a father, and that society has of me as a man and a father.
There's a long-standing stereotype about absent fathers. How true or false do you think that really is today, like dealing with black fathers?
There are statistics out there that show, on one hand, that black fathers are not present that much. A lot of it's based on marriage statistics as well.
Right.
Yeah, but those marriage statistics don't mean anything, because I know a lot of people that aren't married, and the fathers are all my friends. I think bar one maybe, and the situations are quite complex. All my friends are involved, whether they're with the mum, whether they're married, whether they're separated, whatever. All the people I know are fully invested in their children. And my close people, their close people, are fully invested in their children. So there's this stereotype that's promoted about black fathers, but the reality seems a lot different.
And I was just going to ask you, how has media shaped public perception of black fatherhood? And what damage has that done?
Well, if they make programs like Baby Father, you're taking a mickey.
Yeah, you're taking a piss.
Yeah? Well, you know, what is that about? What is it? It's such... what word can I use? It's such a topic. It's a topic of such, not stature, or negative stature. All right, Baby Father, we've got to make a program about that. Like, come on now, don't take the mickey.
But to me, it just feels like there's a complete want and need to push the narrative of the black father, the black male.
Absent one.
Yeah, to paint this picture and keep it there. Because like you said, like, don't get me wrong, I know that there's a lot of fathers out there that most probably are not present and don't really care.
Yeah.
But around me, just as the same what you said, around me, for what I see, all are involved, totally committed, and are doing a great job. So as we're talking about media, how important is it for us to push that narrative of what we see is our reality?
Yeah, I think we do it every day in what we do.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a sort of understanding amongst, you know, the people that you know, that Neville's a certain way, he's a good dad, Kev's a certain way, he's a good dad. You can go into certain spaces and people might talk about, Kevin's always been with blah blah, Neville's always been with his daughter and da da da. So, you know, I think the proof is in your actions. You know, I think there's too much power in media that individuals can't control and manipulate. That whether it's the black gangster, whether it's the black absent father, or whether it's the black dysfunctional mother, or the black dysfunctional child in school that's being led down the criminal path. These stereotypes that they like to promote and project out into the world on a regular basis, we've got no power over. I think it's quite perverse that they still want to spin that narrative and make it seem, you know, nothing much has changed from the days of pseudoscience when they wanted to make black people seem inferior. Yeah. Now they want to make them seem like they're underachieving, gangster type entities that don't look after their children. You know, and that's been promoted for whatever reason. And you know, like I've said before, there's no one that's on our level, regardless of their nationality, that controls that narrative and that can actually contribute to pushing that outwards. And again, that's why I get upset with the reform lot,
Yeah.
because there's strength in numbers. You're not so thick that you don't understand what's going on. So why are you so opposed to immigration and immigrants when it's not the immigrants, so to speak, that are controlling what goes on or controlling the narrative? If you open your eyes, reform law, you know, you could have a better grip on making change than going out and doing some anti everyone marches.
What are some of the positive examples of black fatherhood that often go unnoticed or uncelebrated?
Doing the everyday work,
Yeah.
you know, but then there's why should it be celebrated? You're a dad. Do the work. Yeah? Or there's been so much put on the absence of black dads that just being a dad now seems to be something big.
Yeah.
Like, why is it a big thing for me to operate as a father? I'm just a father. I'm
Yeah.
a black man. But
Yeah.
you put so much emphasis on the negative aspects of a minute proportion of black fathers that now I've got to prove myself that I'm a good black dad.
Yeah.
No, I'm just a dad.
Yeah.
Yeah? Putting in the work.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like when we done our episodes for Black History. And I kind of feel like, why do we have to emphasize it being Black history when it's just history?
Yeah.
But because of the situation we've been put in and, you know, the look of us being separated, we have to kind of fit it in that sort of category for it to make sense to some people.
Of course, I mean, it's funny that there's part of me that recognizes that I behave in a certain way because of how society sees me. I behave in a way that crushes the stereotypes that are attached and the labels that are attached to black people. In a lot of situations now, I will not act like the N-word you want me to act like when I can feel that you're prompting it in certain situations, because there are people out there that want to test their hypothesis that, all right, if I do this, you as a black man will go mad. But no, I won't, because I'm not biting your bait.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of times in society I get upset with myself because I have to play this game.
Yeah.
I have to crush the stereotypes by behaving what is normal, but going above and beyond normality, because I know you're trying to prod a sleeping lion sometimes in situations. I've had it in a lot of situations, and people want to talk about, you know, unconscious biases, unconscious microaggressions. There's things that are real that other people can't see. If you haven't got black skin, you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
When people are pressing your buttons and taking the mickey out of you in front of people, or behind your back, and then there's consequences to that later on that may emerge. But it isn't easy. It isn't.
It's just like coming out of, you know, your own sort of show and situation just to fit someone else's ideal of who you're supposed to be in it, really.
Yeah, you know, there's a standard that's been set, and there's a lack of authenticity that we can't come with as a consequence of the standard that's been set. So even as basic as this, I might be African, and if I dress in traditional wear, it may be expensive, the cloth may be expensive, it may be bright coloured, and for me, it's smart. But can I go into work dressed like that? No. When I bring out my traditional food, whether it's Caribbean, whether it's African or whatever, and you're heating it up in the staff room, what are the looks and the noises that you're going to hear from the staff? But when you're heating up your food, it's fine, you know, because the standard's been set, and anything that's outside of that standard is open to criticism.
Yeah.
To some extent, underpinned by a lot of bias or racism, you know, so.
How can we challenge and rewrite the narrative around black fathers in our community?
I mean, there's a lot of people doing great work. Shout out Courtney Brown. He's doing a lot of good father stuff, man. I went to an event. I'm a black man, get me out of here. I think it was the other week. A lot of great work. I know there's some manhood organisation. There's quite a few organisations. I can't think of them right now that are doing great work in regards to healing the young boy that's inside. Because there's a lot of healing that's required as well from with black dads, especially with the sort of parenting they received and the parenting their parents received, and how things were passed down and how harsh it was, and how there was a real lack of acknowledgement of anything good from children. There was always this sort of vilification and this real hardcore draconian parenting where you didn't really say good things to your children. Yeah, it was always some cussing about what you was doing or how you operated. There wasn't, for me anyway, and a lot of the friends that I have, the parenting wasn't loving, to say the least, not in comparison to modern day parents. It was more harsh. You did what you was told, or was you got some licks. It was all for the well-being of you, yeah, but it just wasn't. There wasn't a lot of love shown in the practice. So I think nowadays that is something that's people have taken on board. Father has taken on board, but again, there's this thin line of parenting and becoming your children becoming your friends, and then you can't parent them properly.
Yes. Do you think young black men are growing up with enough positive examples of fatherhood to look up to?
I think so. I wouldn't know the statistical data, but there's a lot of great dads out there. I'm hoping there's more great dads than crappy dads, but there are some real crappy dads. I don't know why you would think that, especially when you want your child to do better than you, if you were a criminal entity, why you'd want to involve your child in the same sort of practices. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, each to their own. Like, if you're rolling on street for X amount of years and you can't help but teach your child the trade, what can I say to you? Because who knows where that might lead your child to. It might lead them to a road of success that, because of that situation, they didn't want to have anything to do with it later on. You never know how things can transpire, but for me, the life that I existed, I didn't want my children to have any notion of it or get involved in anything like that. I want my children to be better than me, so really that's the sort of premise I work off. I don't know how you feel about things.
I was going to say, I think, because I always reflect on myself when I do with these questions. And when I grew up, Mum and Dad split up when I was about 11. And from then, I never had no guidance.
Yeah.
The only real guidance I had was my brother, 2 years older than me. So like, we're two kids trying to figure this thing out. And other than music, because at that time there's no internet, but we're listening, And I grew up with a lot of the positive male role models I would say I had as a child was the revival music, where you had them speaking about standing up, being strong, understanding who you are, and then obviously spilling into like hip hop. I'll say like at that sort of age, I was getting into like when I was 11, I started to write a lot. That was my beginning of writing.
Yeah,
and I was listening to people like Public Enemy. I had their albums, and I'd spin that on my record player, my own little record player, and that's what would be fueling me.
Yeah.
So I'll say a lot of my influences was in that sector. And as I got older, I think about 15, 15, 16. Don't get me wrong, I was always asking questions, but when I started to get into knowledge of self, I was about 15, I would say. And that's when I started to buy my own books. That's when I, you know, the Malcolm X's, you know, the Barashangos and, you know, Professor James Small and all of these people. So those was my kind of like elders that I looked up to, because around me I didn't have them. Like I think a lot of people was just trying to, I would call it enjoying life. They was trying to figure things out. But the reason why I'm saying all of that is because when you move fast forward now, even though I think social media has a lot of high negatives, there's also a high good quality of stuff that you can find, because I find that you got a lot of people doing what we're doing, trying to have communication. There's a lot of artists that most people would have never came across, but you in real time you can actually see them and, you know, hear them giving something positive. There's a lot of people black people in the community that are, you know, doing little things like trying to teach boxing. Your associate Prince. There's another guy that I know called Fox. Shout out Fox. He teaches boxing, and it's not just about the boxing. Around the boxing, you have like the discipline, and you know they do have moments where they sit down and they talk amongst themselves, and these things go a long way to some of these children, because I'm saying when I was coming up, I had no one to talk to, so all of my thoughts and feelings was kind of compressed, suppressed. I never had an outlet. I never had someone where I could say to them, you know what, I'm thinking and feeling like this. And then they can give me their perspective, and I could be like, oh, you know what, I'm not alone. Or, oh, I never thought of it like that. So I think these things are just necessary for young black individuals, and not just black, just individuals in general, but, you know, just dealing with the question we're talking about, the stereotypes and the issues for young black people. I think having these small hubs of not just, you know, because a lot of people would just like for us to be, you know, we're rappers and we're tap dancers, or we're people that do all of these things. Athletes. Yeah, there's so many different categories that we fit into, and it's just having these hubs in all of those places, I just think it's just so beneficial for people.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's funny when you started talking, everyone's story is different, isn't it, you know, and based upon your story, we are the sum of our experiences. So, you know, we're moulded by what we've gone through. So even in listening to your story, just resonated how different my story was, just not having a dad around at all. So there was no loss of anything, you know, and that can be like the hardest thing, more so than not having a dad in the first place. So I existed without caring, you know, not having a dad around wasn't a problem for me. It was more of a problem for everyone else when I got older. Oh, ain't you gonna look for your dad? Where's your dad? Blah, what's your dad look like? You know, and it's funny because those questions I couldn't answer, because I'd never seen a photo of my dad. My mum hadn't even mentioned his name, so to speak. So it was quite a novel experience in looking back, because I was like, rah, like I didn't even bat an eyelid when it come to thinking about dad. Like, it wasn't an issue. It was only later on, when more so when I trained as a therapist, but along the way people talking about it and me observing people becoming dads, my friends, and then when I became a dad, it sort of hit home a lot more. Like, rah, I didn't have a dad. All right, how am I going to operate? Now, some people have patted me on the back as a consequence of their preconceived notions of how I might be not having a dad. Maybe I'd be absent, because I didn't have that around, so why are you going to be around? But I think it fueled this drive in me to be around, regardless of whatever. So me not having a dad made me feel like that's never going to happen to my children. My children are always going to know their father in the best way possible, regardless of what happens, whether I'm with the mum, or, you know, or we've broken up. I'll always be a stable factor in their lives, you know, and that's what I've done, you know. But everyone's different.
Well, I was about to say, because when I'm hearing you, the word that came to me from what you were saying is just being present. Yeah, and that was my whole issue, because my dad from 11 till now is not present. And my whole thing is, I was always saying to myself the same thing, that I'd never want my child to go through the anger, the pain that I was going through, because a lot of the time when they split up, when I was young, obviously now I look back and I talk to my mum and certain things, I get a complete understanding from her perspective and a lot of things. But at the time I was thinking, did I do something wrong? And you know, you have all of this anger, and I'm saying there's a lot of black children that I know that when their parents split up, I'm not saying that they're going through this, but I know from my experience, I was angry. I was thinking, what did I do? Why isn't he here? Why doesn't he care? And a lot of times I'm coming up to him asking to be present, to be there. He's not doing it. And I'll never forget, I remember one time I approached him and I was, you know, we're arguing, and he just kind of said, what is it? What do you want? And he's just like, he was throwing money. You want money? Do you want this and that? And I just said, I want you to just be my dad. I don't need your money. You know, I get money myself.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I was always saying, that I never wanted my child to go through, to have that pain of like, just be a father and just spend time and just create situations and be the spearhead you're supposed to be.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, man, I think it's paramount that, you know, just do what you're supposed to do, in the sense of just being there and be a pillar.
Yeah.
Just being a pillar, because again, you know, obviously money helps. It's a vice to get in etc. what we need. We need to pay bills and all that, but majority of these kids don't want that stuff.
No.
They want you to flip and throw the ball to them, and you know what I mean, and wrestle them, and then bust joke with them, and then, you know, give them some kind of knowledgeable conversation.
Yeah.
You know, well, that's I can only speak about what I think and feel when it comes to that situation.
And be a role model. You know, the most important thing in a child's life, especially a young boy, and you being a father. You know, my eldest saw a different me compared to what my younger ones have seen. My younger ones have seen a guy in a suit or a shirt and trousers go to work every day for like 20 years. That's the template, that's the model I provided. My boy, what a lovely boy, he operates in the best way, in the way that makes me get emotional, because how myself and his mum, even though we're not together, have operated as, you know, my daughter as well, but I'm just talking from a dad's perspective and looking at my son, like how he's grown up. I can't fault him in any way, you know, no one's perfect, but the boy I wanted to see in my son and how he's developing, just a nice, kind boy that'll do anything for anyone, impeccable manners. Like I said, he's not perfect. He's going to do some dumb shit sometimes, yeah. On the odd occasion, he might. I don't see it, yeah. But that's how I want my son, you know. And however you create that by talking and showing them love, and talking about the future. Maybe your expectations, but my expectations with my children are do your best. That's it. Do your best.
Yeah.
I don't expect any more than that.
Yeah.
You know, because you might not be getting awards or getting the highest GCSEs or whatever, but as long as I see you've done your best, I'm happy. And as long as you're happy, you know, it's not rocket science. What you can attempt to do to make your child or children's life the best for themselves, you know what I mean? It's not, you know, things might not always work out all right, but being that role model is one of the top factors in regards to how your children are going to develop, let alone how early you start creating certain boundaries in the home or with your child. Those two things, they're second to none in regards to the development of your child.
Alright, conscious of time, and you know, we're here anyway. This is the last question that I've got here. But it said, my question is, what does a strong black father figure represent to the next generation?
does a strong black father represent?
To the next generation.
Inspiration. Like, if you're a strong black father that has waded through a sea of adversity and still been able to provide the goods for your child or children to develop in a great way, and the relationship with the mother still to be great, and the household be happy, even in light of a roller coaster ride of financial difficulties, emotional difficulties, social difficulty, all kinds of difficulties, and you've stayed strong, you're inspirational.
Yes. And I'll in my mind, like, because I'm a rebellious soul, you know, that's just how I've always been. I'm a person who's a fighter. I might not be as strong as others, but I'm a fighter. So for me, in my mind, when I think of a strong black male for the next gen, you got to remember, I think just the term of being a strong black male for many is frightening. You know, even in our own community, they've painted a narrative where, you know, you know, the toxic masculinity and all of these things. In TV, they don't want to really show that strong black male. They'll rather show the effeminate male, and this they're trying to get that character out of the picture. So for that to re-emerge for the next generation, I think it's for some it's going to be problems. But you know what? You know, for the seed to grow to become the oak tree it's supposed to, it has to fight through the soil. So I just say bring it on. I think a strong black male is a great representative. Again, going into myself and what I'm doing, that's the whole reason why I called my album The King Nama's Palette. I could have been like any of these other rappers where they remember the time when a lot of these rappers used to base their image off of like the mobsters and the gangsters and the Italians, like the Gambinos and this and that. I wanted to go to the route of someone who unified the greatest civilization on the planet into one, and was a military leader, but was a great leader at that. That's the sort of energy that I feel for the next gen should be spilling back in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said earlier, my influences in regards to trying to be the best dad come from Black history. It come from my friends, but it also come from those girls, Azana, Anama, Shabaka, Kashta, Pai, like all these great kings, that done great things and operated in a certain way in society, and were able to unify and construct civilizations and kingdoms in a manner that were beyond, like, if you look at ancient ruins now, and you think about civilizations then, I'm wondering how much of a lie it is that they were barbaric and they were uncivilized, because when there's a level of technology that they had, an understanding that they had, that I'm wondering sometimes if it was all a lie, you know, and we're actually a lot less civilized than the ancient people.
It seems that way to me.
You know, so I got a lot of inspiration from some of the kings, queens and figures in Black history that stood up against oppression, that rose kingdoms, that built kingdoms, and that stood firm in the face of adversity. So for me as a man, there's a lot that have been induced into me or projected into me from books that give me an understanding of the sort of man that I'm supposed to be, especially as a father. Especially when I didn't have that much influence around me. I didn't have a dad around me, I didn't have uncles around me, I didn't have cousins around me, you know, so there was a real lack of any sort of male influence at all. And of course my friends, you know, my close friends, I'm lucky that as much as we went on with certain things that weren't too positive when we was young, that all of my close friends have got good hearts. So in our development, we all come up with a sort of similar way of seeing the world and seeing how to be as fathers.
Well, there you have it, guys. Another great episode talking about great things with a great individual. And yeah, man, until next time, peace and love.
Take
Family.
care. Yes. Nice.
Hey yo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The vortex.